Hello, and thanks for tuning in for this episode of AWS Edge Innovation Spotlight. In this series, we showcase groundbreaking innovation and real-world success stories from our customers to demonstrate the power of how you can accelerate your business at the edge of the cloud. My name is Christopher Jen, and I lead the AWS Edge go-to-market for security services business. Today, I am delighted to be here in our London studio with Kingfisher.
I'm Anand Krishnan. I'm Head of Cloud Platform and Reliability at Kingfisher.
Hi, I'm Scott McCormack. I'm the Cloud Principal Engineer.
Hi, I'm Ashley Moore. I'm Principal Software Engineer at Kingfisher.
Thanks for joining us, and let's have a great conversation. Tell us about Kingfisher and the overall company.
Yeah, so Kingfisher PLC is a home improvement and trade brand. We have 1,900 stores spread across 6 European countries. Across a different number of different brands, or what we call banners, which are B&Q, Screwfix, Castorama, Brico Depot, TradePoint, and Costas. As we've got recognizable brands, we want to make them secure, scalable, and reliable as well. And we believe in selling e-commerce for home improvement and trade, and really driving better homes and better lives for people.
Wow, that's a big business to be managing.
It is.
How has your use of AWS technology helped you solve some of your challenges today?
Yeah, so we started our AWS journey back in 2016, where we deployed traditional type compute, load balancers, auto-scaling groups. Then we moved into the microservice world and the Kubernetes world. Then during 2020, when the COVID pandemic struck, we found out our current on-premise websites were severely overloaded. We couldn't compete with the capacity needed, and we needed to find an alternative solutions. So we worked with AWS, and we transitioned our e-commerce front door to the CloudFront with web application firewalls. And our whole migration process took us about 6 weeks. So we accelerated everything at speed because of the need for the business to keep functioning. And we moved our entire front-end services from on-prem to AWS within that short period of time. So it was very, very rapid reaction, and surprisingly went very well. And it wasn't as hard as we first thought, and also meant we could automate a lot of our code, where before I knew it was manual. We then chose the opportunity to also automate all that code. So obviously from 2020 onwards, our initial implementation was around the web application firewall side, was traditional. It's IP-based blocking, and over the years we've had to increase our experience and knowledge, because the threats that are on our web commerce websites were becoming more frequent. So in the past, we would normally wait for an attack to happen, then respond to it, block those IP addresses. Because that was becoming more and more frequent, we had to look for alternative methods of what we need to do to protect our websites. So we started introducing some of the AWS managed website rules, anonymous IP addresses, bad inputs, those type of services. We introduced rate limiting. And then towards the end, we started introducing bot mitigations and bot protections, initially around the common aspects of it, and later towards the targeted modes to involve machine learning and those capabilities to protect our websites, changing our posture to be more proactive rather than reactive type works. So that's where we are today.
Wow. You talked about migrating, and at the beginning you thought it was, you were afraid it was so complicated. What were some things that you thought, you initially hesitant about when doing this migration?
Yeah. So before the pandemic, we're always risk averse. We want to play safe. We want to make sure everything works. So we would very long waterfall type projects, and so everything takes months, sometimes even years to progress. Also, because of the pandemic and the rapid nature of it, a lot of those concerns we were forced to put aside. So it's more about our confidence level that was holding us back than actually any real technical need or limitation. So when we actually faced into that, and we partnered with AWS and working with them to give us that solution, we actually found that the whole migration process was a lot smoother than we went. I don't believe we caused any service disruption during the migration phases. And for us, that was a big, massive success at a time when the company really needed us to perform.
Saved the day.
Oh, yeah.
So then maybe talk about the success story. where now what impact to the business this had for you guys?
Yes. So research shows us that around about 50% of the traffic online now is from bots, and Kingfisher is not immune to that traffic. Using some of our AWS powered logs, I was able to have a look at exactly where our traffic was coming from, and we were able to categorize it into sort of 3 buckets. Firstly, we could see there was an increase over the last few years from good bots, so things like Google for bot for SEO, and also from LLMs with the rise of AI. But then there's also bots that we could identify, that we could see a pattern of behavior where it was clear that they were scraping our site, probably for price comparison reasons. And then we also saw lots of bots that were what we categorize as bad bots. So bad bots meaning they were trying to look to see in our systems if they could attempt to penetrate it, of course, without success. So I got in touch with my colleague here, Scott, and we kind of started looking through actually what could we do to mitigate some of the impact of some of our back office systems and on our APIs to protect them further and to reduce our cost to serve to our customers. So one of the things we did is we looked at some of the managed rules from AWS, such as the bot mitigation rules. That enabled us to allow good bots in that we wanted to from things like Google, and also from LLMs that wanted to obviously train their models, which we invite because we want to appear inside of the new AI search results, of course. But then it also allowed us to block bots that we could see that were coming from malicious actors and IPs, people who are attempting to spoof things like Google and these LLMs for their own purposes, whatever it may be. We were also able to use the AWS WAF rules to set labels that on our to pass down to our edge services that enabled us to set custom caching headers for these bots. That meant that the CloudFront would make it cheaper for us to serve these bots by serving a cache, essentially. So the result of that was we saw on one of our brands, such as TradePoint, we saw a 95% drop in the overall number of traffic hitting our back office systems, because we're able to block a lot of those bad bots, or making it really cheap and cost effective to serve to the good bots. Also, we saw in our AWS account the amount of cost for our Lambda costs for serving our front end services dropped by about 40%, which was a really, really great saving for us as a business.
I think on that one as well, we saw significant drops in our amount of compute we had to use. So a lot of these bots, they have a knock-on impact to subsidiary services like our logging, compute, underlying network. And so we're seeing, a sweeping reduction across the board once we mitigate those bots and the WAF.
I think we're seeing that across many of our customers, right? The rise of AI and wanting to scrape networks, scrape your website. And what I think is interesting and what I heard is by giving you these labels, it gave you some insight into what's happening. And then you could decide on how you want to control. And you're also able to offload the ones that you do want. You do want to be surfaced. So I guess the Lego block approach of AWS also helped you then build your own Intune.
Yes. I think it gave us the flexibility to be able to create our own rules to match our own traffic makeup, such as we were able to look at different geographical areas that we knew that a lot of these bots were coming from, which weren't countries that we were serving customers in. So we knew that a lot of that traffic may be malicious traffic or scraping traffic from bad bots. So we're able to fine tune actually how we were mitigating some of that impact. And as I said, we were able to, where we knew that was good traffic coming from, that we were able to identify, we were able to fine tune our behaviors on our CloudFront in order to serve those bots more cost effectively.
Yeah. In addition to that, because obviously we service many different banners, each of our banners have their own unique profiles that they want to accept. So we're able to tailor-made the protection for what the banners are wanting us to enforce. Some banners wanted to be more aggressive on certain aspects that we needed to tie down. Other banners wanted that traffic to come in, depending on what that traffic was. The ability for us to control it through the labeling, through the common rules and all that type of features enabled then the banners to get more specific requirements met.
Banners are your different brands?
Yes, so Screwfix, B&Q, Castorama, Brico. These are all the different banners, and they all have different slight requirements for what type of people they want to be able to access their sites.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing of using AWS WAF is that it's very flexible on what you can do. And so when we have different use cases for the different brands, we can tailor it for each one of those brands. We're not restricted by, just one way of approach. We can have different approaches per brand for how we block the bot traffic or any malicious actors.
So it allows you to adapt faster,
Mm-hmm.
work with your business to be a business partner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
From your perspective, what strategies and insights have helped you adapt to today's market?
So at the moment, we're probably having the information. A lot of the when we first set things up, everything was put in count mode. So for us to understand the traffic profiles, with that information, we can then go to our various business partners to understand what they wanted to achieve and what they wanted to block, what they were prepared to accept, and that the data when we first obtained it was very much at the forefront of how we designed our protection from that point forward.
It wouldn't be a success story or a case study if we don't talk about AI. How have you been using AI in your business?
Mm-hmm. So we see it across a lot of our engineering, being able to use AI to drive, testing, more development, being able to understand, how they can provision infrastructure. So making an engineer more, T-shaped and the ability to be able to, do the sort of full stack. That's where we're seeing AI have a big contribution. On the WAF front, we're starting to look at, AI for tracking bots and being able to react to that as well. So, some of the machine learning stuff that's built into the WAF. So that's where we're seeing AI being used, and also on the business side as well around, how we automate certain workflows within the business as well. We're seeing more and more that people want to use AI for those things like, document creation to analysis. So yeah, across the board, we're starting to experiment more and more with AI.
And on the flip side of that, there's also the AI actually coming to our websites from external sources. So we're seeing a large change in the traffic profiles of our customers interacting with our services. So we're seeing a lot more AI-driven traffic coming through, whether it be a ChatGPT or other type of services. And so that's also making us having to change how we adopt our protection patterns as well.
That is going to be what we're going to see in the future, right?
Yeah.
Different ways of, maybe it's not just humans that we're interested, it's agents, agents themselves, and helping you categorize and decide what you want to do. What are your primary concerns that are impacting your industry in today's landscape?
I suppose security is a big one for retail, given some of the stories in the media at the moment. It's a big priority for us to make sure we're secure and make sure we've got the right protections in place. And AWS have been helping us massively in that space, around how we can do WAF protection as well as how we can secure our perimeter within the cloud. And then also, how can we make sure we're, reliable and secure, reliable as well? We can make sure that we've got that scalability, built in, given that we're a very weather dependent business, so, given that we've had such a great summer, we see our traffic patterns sort of match how we see the weather as well. So we see a lot of that kind of scalability that AWS can give us.
Great. Looking ahead, how will partnering with AWS prepare you for the future?
Yeah, I suppose we're really excited about the AI side of what AWS can offer. There's a big benefit to our business, with a lot of integrations between different systems. We're hoping AI can really provide that glue between our different systems. It's a complex organization with lots of people. And so we're having to integrate lots of different systems together. So we really think AI can help accelerate some of that.
Nice. Yes.
In addition to that, obviously AWS themselves are putting a lot of investment in this area. So we're keen to take that journey with AWS to see how well it goes. Obviously, you introducing protection packs right now, which we're looking at to see how best we can implement those. We're introducing some of our own packages. So we're going to be using potentially Lambda services to help investigate our logs and files to help do more dynamic type blocking and filtering to enable us more proactive type protection. We still see a lot at the moment of reactive type, well, what we call whack-a-mole going on at the moment. The more we could face into that to stop it happening, so at the least amount of impact on our engineers, that's always going to be positive for us, because that means we're protecting our customers as well as actually making our engineers' lives a lot easier and not getting called out at whatever time in the morning to fix them or resolve issues.
No one wants to be called late at night.
Definitely not.
Or early in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think security automations are one of the big things that we're looking forward to the most, and how they evolve, particularly with the adoption of AI. So how do we analyze our logs to identify patterns of traffic that are malicious, or we can see that they look like a scraper or a crawler that we don't want to allow to enter our estate. So by, as I say, maturing those security automations on our domain, we think will save a lot of time and also keep our customers' data safe.
Yeah, it's a great place, right? Because of the amount of data security logging produces, it could help you sift through that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have spent many weeks doing log analysis. We manually going through, trying to have a look at patterns of behavior, and we've identified some strategies to be able to do that. However, we do recognize that actually that's not cost effective in the long run. We want to be getting on with our day jobs, doing the great engineering, creating new features for our customers, helping them with their home improvements ultimately. But if we're spending all our time deep in the logs trying to protect our systems against increased costs from these bots, then we're not doing that. So we're looking forward to actually being able to take our hands off the wheel, if you like, and allow some of these security automations with the help of AI to be able to achieve that.
You mentioned protection packs. What interests you about the protection pack and what we're trying to launch?
So from us, as we mentioned, doing more automation, more dynamic type protection is absolutely where we need to go. The current way where we have to review logs is always after the event. So having something that's more dynamic in nature, so we have that automatic protections without us having to investigate, is a very good thing for us to look at.
Thanks, guys, for spending time with us in the London studio today to share your story, share your journey with our audience. That wraps up our conversation with Kingfisher. Their success story demonstrates the transformational potential of AWS Edge services in today's very rapid changing landscape. Thanks for watching AWS Edge Innovation Spotlight.